Seth Godin, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's good to talk with you.
So Seth, I have been a follower of yours for almost 10 years when I was forced into entrepreneurship and I opened my first business and I didn't have any idea about marketing. So when I told my audience that I was going to have this conversation with you, many of them say, all right, congratulations. But I'm sure there are few people in my audience who don't know who the hell is you. So can you start by giving us just like a 2-minute intro about who you are and what is it that you do?
I think most people on earth have no idea who I am, which is my plan. The goal is not to reach as many people as you can. The goal is to be specific and reach the people who need what you have to say. I'm a teacher and an author. I've written 19, now 20 best-selling books. And I teach people about how to see things, how to make things better, how to work with a specific audience, how to help a community get to where it wants to go.
Okay, so Seth, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, and then we're going to just put it with the work that you have done. I came to Canada 22 years ago. I was told that if I came to an industrialized country and I went to an institution called university and I worked there for 4 or 5 years, then I will have a piece of paper that will guarantee me success for the rest of my life. It so happened I got that piece of paper, but because I have a funny Spanish accent, nobody wanted to hire me. So I was forced into entrepreneurship. That's, by the way, that's how I met you, because I started doing research. I opened a dance school. So I want to just take this conversation about your views on formal education, university. I know that you have some strong points about it. How useful is it nowadays, or how can we do without?
So what do you buy when you buy an education from an institution that charges a lot of money? In Canada, it's much cheaper, but you're still spending a lot of time and maybe money. And what you're buying is the piece of paper, because if you want the learning, you can get that for free. You can get the learning, every course at MIT online for free. But learning is hard. Learning requires community. It requires support. It requires confronting incompetence. Learning is critically important, but it is not always connected to education, which is purchasing the piece of paper. Now, there are many jobs where that piece of paper is required. If you want to be a doctor, you need a piece of paper. If you want to get a job on Wall Street, they want you to go to a fancy business school. So know what you're buying and know what you get in exchange. But for people who aren't buying that, I think we got to figure out a way for them to commit to learning instead. And that might mean some self-motivation. It might mean organizing other people and going on this journey. But it's not access to knowledge. That's not the problem anymore. The problem is we need to build systems for learning.
So when I was forced into entrepreneurship, I was forced to learn, not to get a degree, but to be able to survive. And I didn't have a community that you are talking about. In particular, I want to ask you about the AltMBA, where you have created a community of people who are eager to learn and who have some guidance. Everything that I learned that I was able to monetize or to make a living with, I learned it basically on YouTube for free. So this drives me to ask you about the AltMBA that you are running right now.
Right, so the AltMBA is one of the workshops we do at Akimbo, and it's a workshop in the sense that there's content, but not very much. It's mostly about a place where 120 other people are going to come together for 30 days, 2 or 3 hours a day, to, in community, get from where they are to where they want to go. It's a place to give and get feedback. It's a place with structured group projects and a lot of work that teaches you can get way more done than you thought. It teaches you that you have more leverage than you thought, but it doesn't teach you anything they teach you at business school. And 97% of the people who start the AltMBA finish it. And that community, which is now 5,000 people around the world in 80 countries, that community is extraordinary because it's filled with a bunch of people who now realize that they can make a difference.
And how does that work? Let's say I join the AltMBA and I have a community and I have, I don't know, I want, my old business used to be a dance school. I want to open a dance school. How is this community going to help me to achieve my goals?
Well, running a small business involves a lot of tactics. There are a lot of mistakes to avoid. That's why we run workshops like the marketing seminar, the bootstrappers workshop, the freelancer seminar, because those are about the tactics you're going to bring to the decisions you need to make to get more students in the door for your dance school, to figure out how to make it pay, right? The AltMBA is a bigger question than that. The AltMBA is, why do I even have a dance school? The AltMBA is, how do I design things with design thinking? What's it for and who's it for? How do I show up with a mindset where I'm treating people as they are instead of judging them before I interact with them? How do I make better decisions? So you can learn tactics in a lot of places, but the act of doing in community where you are uncomfortable and then you come out on the other side, that unfortunately is too rare.
And that goes on for how long?
The AltMBA takes 4 weeks.
Nice.
And the other workshops, some of them are as long as 100 or 200 days.
Wow. Okay. One of the books that I read by you that made me think often is this one called The Deep, because I never know if I'm running into a wall that I'm just not good enough, or if I'm not trying, or if I just need to give it a little bit more time, continue until I pass that deep. And one of the frustration is in particular with my podcasts. I, like everybody else, I suffer from comparison bias, and I feel like I'm not doing enough. You know, am I doing the right thing, or should I just quit? So can you just give and how give me some guidance, and then how other people can apply this? How do we know that, you know, we just need to stick at it a little bit longer?
Right. So The Dip is a book about quitting. And the argument I make is we've been quitting our whole lives. We quit taking ballet lessons when we're 4 years old. But when we become an adult, we get seduced into thinking quitting is for losers. But in fact, the best way to be a winner in whatever competitive field you seek is to be seen as the best one, the best knee surgeon, the best pastrami sandwich. When you are seen as the best one, there's a line out the door. So I'm not sure where you are in Canada, but in Montreal, there's 2 places that are seen as having the best bagels. They probably sell 100 times as many bagels as any other bagel place because they're seen as the best one. So if you quit everything else and commit to finding your smallest viable audience and being seen as the best by them, it has a very big reward. So in the case of being in the dip and the question of should I quit or should I stick it out, knowing to ask the question is what the book is about. I don't tell people how to answer it. I want them to ask the question. Now, one of the ways to answer it is to say, has anyone else ever gotten through this dip? So if you go to the gym to train for a marathon, the first month is really hard, but you can look around and realize other people have dealt with that and they've gotten to the other side. When I think about a podcast, I would ask you, how many of the, 7 million podcasts out there are going to become really profitable? And the answer is 1,000. The odds are terrible. Unless you have a very specific plan. If your goal is to make a profitable podcast, you should stop now. On the other hand, if you want the podcast to have a different purpose, to give you trust and connection in your specific industry, to give you a chance to have guests, to give you a chance to share your thoughts, to give you go on the list. There, you can see plenty of people have gotten to the other side. So that's worth persisting. And so the distinguishing factor here is we get tricked into thinking that our job is to win everything. No one wins everything. And the people who win a lot are mostly lucky. What you want is to figure out how to win enough. How do you find your segment where you can show up and be glad you did?
And the other thing is that earning more money is not necessarily the sign of success. For example, in this case, my podcast is allowing me the opportunity to speak with you and with other fine people like you, which it doesn't have a monetary value, but I just feeling me of this gratitude, and I feel like a winner just by having this conversation.
Well, it's very kind of you. I'm super lucky to be talking to you.
So, Seth, I have a personal question. I belong to a community right here in Montreal, by the way, this is where I live, of plant-based diet. And I have heard that you don't eat any meat. So I have a few vegan friends who are telling me, asking why he doesn't eat meat.
Well, first, to be fair, I'm not a vegan because I eat eggs. I think that ethically raised eggs, they're just like the chickens are leaving them behind anyway. But that's just controversial, but true. And socially, now and then I will eat fish. So I don't want to pretend I'm a vegan, but I haven't had meat from an animal in more than 30 years. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One reason is it feels to me like avoiding suffering just so I can have something that might be delicious doesn't feel like a fair deal to me. Number two is after 10 years, it wasn't delicious anymore anyway. I have no craving whatsoever, zero. And third is the planet can't support any more meat. And we really need to get out of the mindset. The amount of meat the typical North American eats has gone up by many factors in the last 100 years. People were totally healthy with the small amount of meat they were eating 100 years ago. What happened? What happened is an industry was built that made a profit by getting us to buy that thing. It just so happens it's easy to ship, easy to store, easy to sell. So I'm not surprised there's an industry around it, but I think we'd all be better off if there was no more slaughtering of cows or chickens.
Okay, I'm going to replay this segment to my vegan friends. So, Seth, you have written so many books, and now you are coming out with a new one, The Practice. Can you tell us what is it about and who is it for?
The subtitle is Shipping Creative Work, and that's at the heart of what the book is about. Not paintings or plays. Those are creative as well. But anything we do where we're not sure it's going to work, whether that is a new flyer or starting a new business, whether it's a difficult conversation with a colleague, these are creative acts. And we have been brainwashed into thinking that creative acts belong to other people. We've been brainwashed into thinking that we have to get picked. And we've been brainwashed into thinking that criticism is fatal. And what I wanted to do was help people find a practice to make things better by choosing to regularly show up with this creative work.
But if we have been brainwashed, I have been brainwashed by years of TV advertisement and brainwashed with posters all over the world. Like ever since I was a kid, I was told that one of the symbols of success is that I have a luxury car. So I have been brainwashed with that image my whole life. Now, how do I scrub that brainwashing out of my head? For anything that we do, anything is a social symbol. And like the phone that I use is a symbol, the sneakers that I walk on is a symbol, and it's a brainwasher that not only I judge myself, but other people around me are constantly judging me whether I have the right brand of sneakers or not.
Absolutely. And the only way we change is by doing things. We do things and then we believe them, not the other way around. That if you want to deal with racial justice, the best way to do it is by acting like somebody who isn't judging people by the color of their skin. Then you will start to believe that that's okay. If you want to have a creative practice, you don't do the math and figure out if people are going to like you. You just do a creative practice. And once you start doing it, then you come to the conclusion that you must be onto something. And so my book is about persuading you to do the thing, not persuading you that the thing is going to work, because they're different.
And should we start to do the things in small increments, like steps that will give us courage enough to do a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger? Is that how you suggest?
Bingo, the smallest viable breakthrough. You do not need to be Albert Einstein. You know, one of the little riffs in the book is I teach people how to juggle. And juggling is hard for people because they are focused on catching the ball. And if you try to catch the ball, you're going to lunge to the left to get it. And then you'll be out of position and you'll have to lunge to the right to get it. That's not how you learn to juggle. Juggling is not about catching. Juggling is about throwing. If you learn to throw, the catching takes care of itself. So the way to learn to juggle is to just keep throwing and don't even try to catch for an hour. Nothing but throws. Just let it drop on the floor over and over again until you're good at throwing. And then you'll discover that the catching will take care of itself.
Okay, and you also speak about creativity. I mean, we are taught that creativity is for painters and for musicians, and that's it. That the average Joe is not a creative person. We are just pencil pushers. And how can we accept that we are all creative? Because, you know, like when we were little kids, all of us were creative, but now you ask who is creative, who is a creative person, and no one raises their hand.
That's right. However, if I say to people, have even once in your life, even once, have you told a joke that was funny? Even once, have you said something to someone else that was kind or useful? Everyone would say, sure. So now it's no longer, are you a creative person? It's, well, at least once you've been creative. So now all we have to do is learn to do it again. It's not like one day you wake up and you're a different flavor of human. It's that you have a practice. And the practice of creative people is they do things that are creative.
Okay. In your book also, you talk about be paranoid about mediocrity. And we, some people, or most of us, we don't want to stand out. We accept mediocrity as, you know, as something safe. I don't, if I try to be the best, I may fail and I could feel bad about myself. My ego gets suppressed. People make fun of me. But if I'm just as everybody else, I feel safe. No one is going to ever, you know, tell me anything nasty because I'm like everybody else. So how can we get out of mediocrity?
Well, it turns out that the riskiest thing you can do in this crazy world is play it safe. Because if you play it safe, you're betting on yesterday. If you play it safe, you're assuming the status quo will remain. And those are the people who lose their jobs. And those are the people who get overlooked. And those are the people who don't make things better. So it turns out the safest thing you can do actually feels risky.
That almost sounds like something that that I study finance, and the riskiest thing that a person could do in their portfolio is to have everything in cash. That is the one way that is guaranteed 100% that you will lose money. So by playing it safe, we are guaranteed to fail. And by taking risk and spreading our risk, then we are actually, we're increasing our chances of success.
Yeah, well said.
And okay, so and the other question is, how do we turn our passion from distraction to a productive contribution?
Well, you've already highlighted that productive contribution feels risky, and we evolved to want to play it safe. And what I would like to sell people on is the idea that this creative act of yours is not selfish, it's generous. It's generous because if it works, it's going to make things better for other people. And I think deep down, most people would like to be generous. And so keep reminding yourself that the world needs that thing you are working on. And if it's not received well, make a better thing. Don't give up, just make a better thing, because that's the generous work.
And another thing nowadays, if we have just a little bit of talent in anything, we feel the pressure that because we are good at this, we have to monetize it. So like right away, if I'm good at making cookies, I should open a bakery. If I draw a nice picture, I should open an art gallery. How do we balance between being good at something, but not necessarily having to monetize, or at least, say, I do this because I care about this work, not necessarily because I
Right.
want to make a lot of money.
Yeah, even the words we use get in the way. Calling someone an amateur is almost an insult, right? I love hobbies. I think more people need more hobbies. I think doing work for yourself is totally fine. Just don't get confused and then start selling your work at a craft fair. Don't get confused and start assuming that your hobby should turn into a bakery. If you're going to turn pro and trade time or money for what you make, then it is no longer for you. It is for the person you are serving. And you either sign up for that or you don't. But you're not allowed to be a diva. You're not allowed to show up and say, the world owes me a living. The world owes me subscriptions. It doesn't. And it will just walk away.
Wow. Seth, I have goals to become a better writer and perhaps even a speaker one day. And I know some of our audience have goals to achieve this and the other thing. And we have always the barrier of fear of getting started here, of, being criticized. And well, you have faced fear many times. You are in the habit of making yourself uncomfortable. I feel like you are comfortable on your discomfort, but how can we face that fear and just go for our goals for ourselves, not necessarily to serve other people?
Well, there's so many pieces in that. It's a great question. The first one is, all criticism is not the same. Criticism from someone who's a bad critic, who you didn't make the work for in the first place, who's a troll, who's trying to make a point against you, should be ignored. It's irrelevant. It's not helpful. It's not making your work better. Criticism from someone who you do seek to serve is really useful, because they're giving you this gift of telling you the truth about what would make it work for them. You can still ignore it, but their truth helps you do better work for them. But that's not the core of your question, which was about fear. Being afraid of a shark or a tiger is probably good, right? That if you're in the jungle and you're not afraid of a tiger, you got big problems. But being afraid of shipping your work is a trap. It's a trap because nothing bad is actually going to happen to you. You might get ignored, but that's all. And so you're using your fear to hide. The same way people use being tired as a reason to stop running a marathon. And you can't run a marathon without getting tired, and you can't do creative work without feeling fear. They go together. And, if you meet somebody in Montreal in February and they complain about how cold it is in Montreal, you're allowed to say, then why did you come to Montreal? Because Montreal is cold in February. In Celsius and Fahrenheit, it's just cold. Well, if you want to do creative work, be prepared to be afraid. Part of the deal.
Right. And how about getting into daily habits in order to face our, for example, you have the daily habit of writing every day. And, like we have all these other distractions, social media, family, kids, but still we had to do a little bit of work if we want to achieve certain goals, certain dreams. So, how do we integrate that into our life?
Right. So a practice insulates us from the moments of fear. It insulates us from our lack of momentum. So I'm not going to have a blog post on my blog tomorrow because it's perfect. I'm going to have a blog post tomorrow because it's tomorrow. I made the decision once to blog every day. I don't have to make the decision again. And that's what it means to have a practice. If you want to become an athlete, just make a commitment to go to the gym. Put your shorts on and go to the gym. You don't have to work out, but you got to go there. Because most of the time, when you get there, you're going to say, well, if I already went to all the trouble of coming, I might as well work out.
Right.
It's a practice. And so we need to say, what is the work we want to do? And how do we set up an environment where we do it even when we're afraid, even when we're tired, even when we don't feel like it?
Right. And you also have a talking point that results are byproducts. So I guess by implementing that daily practice, we get the results, or can you go deeper into that? Results are byproducts?
Well, so a lot of people say, if you guarantee me it's going to work, then I'll be creative. And who's going to take that deal? No one's going to take that deal. No one's going to guarantee it's going to work. If you are committed to doing this work, regardless of whether this particular one works, then you can do the work. But if you need a guarantee or reassurance to do the work, you're never going to get started.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Great. Seth, to be honest, I ran out of questions for you. This has been amazing.
This is great. The goal is make it concentrated. This was a great interview. You asked great questions. I don't think we should belabor it. You're leading people. You're connecting. I am so thrilled to meet you. Thank you for doing this.
Can you tell us one more time your website and of course, when will
Sure.
the book be out?
The book is called The Practice. It comes out in November when you're listening to this podcast. And you can find it at Seths.blog/The Practice. And the workshops are at akimbo.com. It's AKIMBO.com.